Hello, everybody. We have some technical issues, but shortly we'll be beginning the talk with Youri and Gareth, founders of Telios, decentralized and encrypted email services, so they talk us more about their product and what is the future for email.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for DSocial for hosting this conversation. My name is Youri Nelson. I am one of the founders of Telios, and I'm here with Gareth Harte, who's the CEO and also CTO of Telios. So, Gareth, why don't you kick us off a little bit by telling us a little bit about yourself and what is Telios?
Sure. Thanks, Youri. So as Youri said, my name is Gareth Harte. I'm the founder, CEO, CTO of Telios, and so I've been a engineer now for a little over 13 years. Kind of started out working at kind of bigger corporate kind of tech companies like at eBay. Previously worked at General Motors as well, but always had a real fascination with the decentralized web, kind of going all the way back to 2013. And so, about 3 or 4 years ago, kind of started messing around with Solidity and building Ethereum dApps and also kind of getting more involved in contributing in the hypercore community. And so in the past couple of years, kind of left corporate and began focusing on Telios and building Web3 and decentralized apps full time.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what Telios does and what's the purpose of the app?
Sure. So Telios is a decentralized and encrypted email service. And so what that means is we really focus on sending emails back and forth directly between devices and as decentralized as possible. And so when you send an email with Telios, it goes directly from your computer to another computer or device without having to without any plain text passing through a central server.
So you mentioned peer-to-peer, you mentioned decentralization, you mentioned encrypted. So there are already services in this space, in the encrypted email space, that are pretty prevalent, right? One of the ones I can think about is Proton Mail. Can you maybe expand a little bit on why Telios is different from Proton Mail, for example?
Yeah, sure. So Proton Mail, first of all, is built on top of the existing email protocol, the one that's been around for 30 plus years. The only kind of like real different thing that Proton Mail does with that is they use something called PGP encryption on the email body. So when you send an email from Proton Mail, you're just encrypting the body of your email and sending it out either through Proton Mail or another email service that supports PGP. The sort of the issue with that is that your emails are still stored all with Proton Mail, and because you're only encrypting the email body, Proton Mail can still read things like the subject of your email and like all the metadata about it, so like IP addresses and timestamps and things like that. Whereas with Telios, we didn't want to store any information or plain text data about our users, and so we've really spent a focus on having all as much as possible kind of operate on users' local devices as much as possible.
So that's interesting. So it operates all in the user's local device. You mentioned that all that information is saved on people's device. So what happens if, let's say, I have my Telios email account on my phone or my computer and I lose or damage my device? Do I lose all my data and ergo my email address?
Yeah, so so decentralization and things being stored locally can kind of cause some more issues, right? So like you were saying, if you lose your device, do you lose everything? And the answer is yes, you would if you weren't sort of backing it up somewhere. And so one of the services we offer at Telios is we give you the option to, we will pin or seed your encrypted data on your local device. So if you were to drop it or lose it, you would be able to, recover that encrypted data, and as long as you still had your, your seed passphrase or your master password, you would be able to decrypt all that data and recover your account on any device.
That's pretty cool. So, you see that information, it allows you to back it up and do all that cool stuff. My understanding too is that Telios doesn't have a web browser, right? So how do you, one, are you able to have your email account on multiple devices, which is something that people do a lot today, right? With my Gmail, I have it on my computer, I have it on my phone. So is that still possible in this model? And if so, like how do you achieve that?
Yeah, so we don't have a web browser, and that was by design. With current email providers like ProtonMail or Gmail, anybody can try and sign in as you anywhere in the world, as long as they have your password, and so you can have two-factor authentication turned on. With Telios, you need to actually be sitting at the physical or using the physical device, and you would have to know your master password to get into the data, because it's all local on your disk. And so how that kind of works is your devices, you're able to sync more devices as well. So if I had all my emails on my computer and I had a mobile phone, we sync those devices over something called a hypercore protocol. And so the actual database and information that you're saving for Telios actually isn't stored with us at all. It all happens locally. And this local database is synced in real time through a peer-to-peer network between all of your devices. And so if even if you drop your computer or broke your computer, but you had everything backed up on your iPhone, you could actually recover your whole account from your iPhone as well.
That's pretty neat. So obviously there's a lot of that infrastructure that's built on some new technology. You mentioned hypercore, you mentioned IPFS, like pinning and all that good stuff. But it being an email server, I guess that one of the questions that comes to mind is does Telios still use kind of the standard email protocols that are used with Gmail and ProtonMail and all those big mail provider? Is it still something that's in use?
Yeah, so we are backwards compatible with the current email protocol. So if you want to send and receive emails from Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo, we support that because we think it's a hard switch to make to a new decentralized email provider if you can't still sort of bridge to the old protocol. We don't think it's too much of an ask, I think, for people to kind of fully switch over. And so if you still want to email somebody at Gmail, we use just straight SMTP for that. And we don't store those emails. We just kind of, allow you to access our mail server to kind of send those out. We don't store them or anything. And when you get a new email coming in from one of those providers like Gmail, we just stream it, either right down to your drive, or we'll push it out to, you can push it out to IPFS and SIA. And so I should mention too that we're pushing out an update probably within the next few weeks or so that will allow you to store all of your emails and static data out on the decentralized SIA network, and then we'll use IPFS to pin that data for you, so you can always access it, even if like Telios were to go offline. Like pretty much everything in the app is still usable. You'd even be able to sign in and still have access to all your data.
So maybe talk about a little bit that thought process that you went through to implement SIA as part of the solution, right? Because it wasn't originally part of Telios. So maybe talk about what led you to want to incorporate that, and what are some of the benefits of having SIA as part of the implementation.
Yeah, you see a lot of these decentralized apps, kind of going straight to some sort of blockchain tech, whether it be Ethereum or Substrate or something else. And then they'll just start kind of just building on top of that. Um, and then after you kind of make those early decisions, you might find out that maybe you had too much infrastructure that you didn't end up needing because as you kind of started building it, you discover new things. And so with Helios, we kind of wanted to we just initially started decentralizing the data passed between all the different devices. And so your emails and all of the key value databases, all of that happens over the hypercore protocol between devices. And then we were kind of finding that, okay, well, when I send Youri an email or send someone else an email with Telios, they have to connect directly to my device. And they with peer-to-peer, obviously they'd get my IP address and everything. So we thought it made the most sense to, okay, for sending these static data or static emails to other recipients that maybe I don't know or aren't in my contact list, now makes the most sense, right, to push this data out to SIA and IPFS, so that way they're not having to directly connect to my device. And it also allows you to access this storage. My device doesn't have to be online for you to get this email. Like, you can just pull it from any IPFS gateway now, and it's more readily available. So, and that's kind of the approach we're taking with Telios, is like, starting basic with decentralization where it makes sense, and as we're developing the protocol, slowly pulling in other technologies where it makes sense, and layering it on top of the servers that we already have.
So, you mentioned a couple things like, Web3 and decentralization and blockchain, right? A lot of times when people think of decentralization and think of Web3, they think blockchain. And blockchain's been around for a little while now. I mean, it's still considered kind of cutting edge, but it's been around for a little while. So why hasn't an email service kind of popped up or just won the space in the Web3, do you think, right?
Hey,
I
you're
know
in.
there's.
I think I might have lost you there.
Okay. I was just saying, why do you think people haven't attempted, or not attempted, but why do you think an email on the blockchain hasn't been successful, right? Because blockchain's been around for a little while, and email certainly has been around for a long time. So you would think people would have put those ideas together, and a service would have emerged from that, right? So maybe talk about what your thoughts are around having email solely built on the blockchain, and maybe why that's not a great idea.
Yeah, so we are seeing some services out there starting to put email on the blockchain. Like, I think there's a project called Altermail that's using the Secret Network blockchain to do email. And email is like a really tricky thing, right? It has sort of limitations that maybe other apps like may not have to think about as much. So, for instance, like, with blockchains being publicly auditable data, I mean, if you had your email address on a blockchain, I mean, like, anybody could just mine all that data to start spamming your email account, right? And then there's like just the problem with spam, right? So, like, how do you keep folks from just spamming the blockchain with emails? And how do we handle spam? How do we take what the existing email protocol does with spam and kind of replicate that in a decentralized world? And so that's kind of all the things we're thinking about there. And also, I really believe it's going to be like a tough hurdle for folks that are using Gmail to all of a sudden be like, oh, hey, if you want to send an email, you've now got to spend like money, to send or to transact on a blockchain to send your email. And so I think people are just used to models where they're paying a monthly fee, or maybe emails are free. And I think the way we're thinking about this is going to be really important to kind of like not divert too much from that current model if we're going to get people to really adopt this type of technology and move to it.
No, that's a very good point. So, from this conversation, we're talking about all these different technology and what Telos does, but really what Telos is more just an email service. It's a protocol, right, that we're trying to build here. So maybe talk about the thought there about not just building service, but rather a protocol, and why that's important in this space.
Yeah, like like a lot of the other email services out there that we've been kind of mentioning on the call, like Proton Mail, you just got Tutanota, Altermail on the blockchain. These services are kind of, everyone always builds these services as walled gardens and siloed apps. So what I mean by that is, if you want all the benefits of Telios or these other applications, then you've got to email other people that also have Telios accounts, right? And we really want to avoid that. And the real goal of what we're trying to build here is we want to take email, which has been largely, for the most part, unchanged for the past 30 years, and build the foundation for email for Web3, right? So Telios is sort of like the first provider on this network that's sort of figuring out the best way to do this and developing the protocol. But then once we kind of get it to a point where it's something that is solid, we really want to release tools to federate this network. So just like current email today. So we want users to be able to spin up their own mail server node and it'd be completely interoperable. And so you can even take your Telios account, if you're with us and you want to go host your own email server, you want to go with another one, you can just pick up everything and just point it to that new service and start operating there. So, you own all your data, you decide where you want to take it, and it's kind of interoperable and swappable with other nodes out there.
No, that makes sense. And, ultimately, I think like we've said already, that further enhance users controlling their data if they wanted to go all the way to the point to controlling their own node and having that control. So no, that's really cool. So obviously, like you said, building email is a pretty challenging endeavor, and I think you and I would both agree that until we started building this service out, we didn't realize all the things that go into email that makes it quite a tricky, from deliverability issues to.
Hey, Yuri, I think we might have lost you again.
You lost me again. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So some of the trick in building email is there's a lot of very tedious tasks or tedious things that you have to make sure that you do right, from deliverability and to spam protection and stuff like that. I think one that would be interested in talking about, especially kind of in decentralized world, is what are some ideas that you have at Telios to be able to guard against things like spam, which even in the current model, apart from just having that massive spam inbox and a lot of the big reason why a lot of these emails actually make it to that spam folder is because you have a company like Google's that just kind of corner the email market, so to speak, and they're able to have a really good picture of all the senders and recipients that are on that network to identify the spam. But in a decentralized,
yeah, so there's a couple ways we're looking at it right now. If in the immediate term, we're using aliases, right? So with Telios, you can create, potentially unlimited aliases that are completely separate from your main email account. And so, I could use an alias like, Gareth, 1985, like hashtag Netflix, and then I'll automatically create a Netflix folder in my Telios account, and I can turn that on and off, but Netflix will never know what my main personal email address is. And so that's something we're doing today, right now, to kind of protect privacy and spam. But once this kind of moves to more even more decentralized model and potentially onto a blockchain in the future, we've had some ideas there where maybe I really like what Hive's blockchain model, where they use a delegated proof of stake. So maybe, for instance, I need to stake a certain amount of currency, and that allows me to send X amount of emails per day, and then that resets on a daily basis. So that would kind of help us cut down on the amount of transactions going out there, so people aren't spamming the network. And maybe there's some sort of reward, right, where like if somebody opens my email, like we both get a payment for it. But if it's spam, then a part of what you staked, you're penalized for that, and it goes back into the pool. So but again, we're sort of just exploring all these ideas. We're not kind of jumping to any of this stuff yet. We're going to be working with the community and users to kind of figure out what's the best way to do this as we're kind of like building out this service.
That's really cool. I think those are some pretty neat ideas that that I'm really excited about seeing come into life. Maybe if you want to spend a few minutes to talk about what's the current state of the product at Telios and kind of the things that are upcoming and things that are on the roadmap.
Yeah, sure. So right now, we launched our beta back in November, and it was just like a very basic email client. So you will send and receive emails over the Telios network, and send and receive emails outside of the network to Gmail, and so on and so forth. And right now, it's just a desktop application, and we're hoping to get a mobile application out early this summer, and we'll, quickly going to be launching features to be able to sync devices and do backup and recovery. We also right now have the ability to do the aliasing like I talked about, so you can kind of create unlimited aliases right now to kind of protect your main inbox. And then we're also kind of like looking farther out on the roadmap, being able to do custom domains. So if you've got your own domain and you want to use it with Telios, we'll allow you to do that in the future. And then also we're going to be coming out with an update very shortly for pushing all of your static content like emails and other files and attachments out onto the SIA network, like I mentioned. And then we will be pinning those files with IPFS, so you can take those files with you anywhere and be able to use the app without ever signing into it. Let's see, what else do we have on a roadmap? That's kind of a short term of kind of what we're looking at there. The big things right now, we're getting mobile out the door, and getting the backup and recovery and syncing stuff, in a state that's kind of production ready, which we're hoping will be by this summer. And then, once we get custom domains and everything like that, and we kind of get some more revenue coming in, we really want to start spending some time and focus on figuring out the federation part, and how we can get users tools to be able to run their own nodes on the network.
You mentioned revenue. Maybe it'd be good to spend maybe a minute to talk about how does a service like this make money? Like, how do you make this a viable business?
Yeah, so how we make money right now is we're so we got 3 plans: $3 a month, $5 a month, and $8. And really the different tiers are kind of like how much storage you want to back up. So you could decide not to back up any storage. We'll give you a few gigs of that for free. But that if you lose your device, then you lose whatever data isn't backed up. So the more emails, the more files that you kind of get, you'll kind of want more storage. And then we also will have things like we give you 5 aliases for free, but with the higher tiers you have unlimited aliases to use. And then the other features that are coming down the road, like custom domains, we'll have in there as well.
Really cool. I think maybe I don't know if these social how they normally do things, but it might be a good time to start taking questions from the people that are listening, if there's any. Gareth, thanks so much for spending time to explain all this. And I'm not really sure how the format works typically for questions, so I'll let.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Youri. Well, if any of you guys have a question, you can go ahead and ask for being a listener, and we're going to give you the role right away.
You also can react raising your hand so we know you want to talk.
Gotcha. Thanks for explaining that. Yeah, while people are reacting, this has been a really cool project to work on, and definitely there's a lot of challenges in trying to figure out how to make this an email work on in the decentralized space, and I think it forces us to have a lot of creative solutions for problems that we don't initially think about. I think personally, I get really excited when Gareth talks about the extra step of decentralization using the blockchain and all the different kind of trust models that can be implemented and the rules that we have to think about. So those are all really exciting challenges to be figuring it out, and hopefully Telios is going to be able to get further traction and get people behind the idea that decentralized email is the way of the future for this type of communication. I don't know, Gareth, if you have any other kind of last minute thoughts of things you want to share with our listener today.
Yeah, I saw somebody was given speaking privileges. I'm not sure. There was a question, I think, from Robert. Yeah, if not, then yeah, this has been like a really interesting project to work on. It's been like a real kind of passion of mine for the past few years. And yeah, I think we're just looking at solving the email and problem in a much different way than other people are looking at it right now. Like I said before, we're really interested in the federation part of it long term, and just really looking at this as a project to replace the current email protocol eventually down the road. It's going to take some time kind of getting there, but we, as far as I can tell, we're the only ones sort of looking at it as a new decentralized federated non-siloed network. So yeah, we're definitely going to need the input and help from the community and feedback, and yeah, hopefully it all gets there eventually.
Yeah, and I guess it's a good opportunity to remind all listeners that the vast majority of the technology that we're building is open source. Maybe you want to talk about why that is important. That is important.
Yeah, sure. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, pretty much almost all the project is open source for the moment, or for forever. And yeah, that's also very important to us. Having other people contribute to the project, and also for auditing what we're actually putting out there, and confirming that the software is doing what that what we say is doing. And we eventually hope to extend this to have more open source tools to be able to host your own mail server node, and that's always kind of important to us. And I've always appreciated projects that open source their technology, and so yeah, we'll continue to do so. And we also contribute to HyperCore when we can, and the underlying libraries that we use to build Telios on top of. And so as we grow and the Telios grows as a company, we hope to also contribute back to the libraries and other projects that we use to build Telios on top of.
Yeah, and hopefully make this decentralized technology more like easily accessible to people that maybe don't know a whole lot about the space, or that don't have a lot of the technical knowledge necessarily to use decentralized technology that can be quite complex today still. Correct?
Oops. Yeah. So, traditionally my background in engineering has been at, like bigger tech companies. And so, everybody, all the other engineers
We
that I've worked
lost
with.
you for a second there, Gareth.
Oh, hello? Can you hear me? Can you, how's
While
that? Can you hear
we wait on Youri, we seem to have a question from Moloko. Moloko, would you like to ask something?
Yeah, I do have a question in regards to the roadmap. I was taking a look at the roadmap earlier, and there was an entry about file storage and sharing. What are your plans on that?
I'm sorry, you broke up there for a second. You said you had asked what our roadmap was for file search and sharing. Is that correct?
File storage and sharing. I saw that was an entry on the spring 2022 roadmap.
Yeah, the file sharing, Gareth.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I didn't really kind of get into the other components that we were going to do on top of email. The file sharing, we're a little bit behind on, so we're going to have to update that roadmap. But we really look at Telios and the email service as sort of like the foundational layer that we want to build other things on top of. So think of like replacing Dropbox. Where you'll be able to use Telios for email, but then also sending and receiving files of any size, really, and keeping all of that in your Telios account, and then eventually doing things like potentially chat and video conferencing as well inside the app. But we kind of really want to start and focus on email. But yeah, file sharing and Dropbox-like functionality is still on our roadmap. We're currently trying to raise some funding right now to be able to hire the engineers to help us continue to build some of that out. Because right now it's just Youri and myself who are the primary or only two developers building all this. But yes, that's still on our roadmap. I'm hoping that'll be coming out still within this year.
And I think what's important to point out from the file sharing perspective, I think Gareth mentioned it a little bit, but worth probably highlighting is because of the way the project is built out and the app is built out, you have the ability to share files of any size between two people, right? And that's the beauty of peer-to-peer technology. Is now I could send you an email with a 10 gig attachment and not be limited by the historical 25 meg that most email providers kind of give you today. So there's some cool benefit to using the architecture the way it's built.
Okay, and if you don't mind, I have a follow-up question in regards to that. So in relation to the additional modules that you're going to be working on, do you envision that all taking place within the Electron app, or do you see it accessible via browser? What are the plans on that?
Yeah, right now, the main reason for going to Electron is with only two engineers, allows us to be able to deploy to multiple operating systems. So we support Linux, Windows, and Mac right now, and then going to iOS. But just given where we're at with developers, that kind of makes the most sense to kind of continue to develop that on Electron right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe just to clarify, I guess if you want to talk about the reason maybe why we don't have a web browser, and if any form of the product will end up as a portal in the web browser or something like that. That might be important.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I forgot to answer the last part of your question there. Apologize. Yeah, so the most pretty much all email, they have like a web portal component, and we wanted to avoid that for a couple of reasons initially. One being, in order to make Telios more secure, like the only way to access your data and files right now is through the Electron app, or eventually through the iOS app on your physical device. So nobody's able to try and even attempt to log in as you through our web portal, and there's no two-factor authentication we have to worry about. Everything is strictly on your actual device. And another kind of benefit that gives you as well is it's you can use it offline. So even if Telios goes offline or goes down, or even if you don't have an internet connection, you can, with your password, you can still log into your Telios account and read your emails and even do transactions. And when you come back online, all that will sync. But we think it gives you some more inherent benefits rather than running it all through a web browser right now.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, super. Thank you for asking your question. Do we have any other questions?
I guess I have one more if no one else is going to go.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. In regards to Telios as a service, there was a lot of talk about cryptocurrencies and decentralization. I know that these are inherently linked in a sense, but do you see Telios getting some broader appeal outside of the crypto space?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is still TBD at the moment, right? I mean, right now we're not leveraging it. I think if we want to continually to decentralize, where we're at right now, I think that it makes sense moving to some sort of
It doesn't look
blockchain.
like there's any more question, but just wanted to say thank you to all the people that tuned in and listened to us. And if you're interested in checking out Telios, you can go to telios.io and check out the we're still in beta, but we're still rapidly iterating over the product and adding new feature every few weeks. So check us out, give us your feedback and your thoughts, and hopefully we'll catch you among our users one day. Thanks so much.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's able to hear me. I was still trying to answer a question. Is my audio still coming through?
Oh yeah, your audio is coming through. Sorry, I had not heard the question.
Yeah, I was answering the question about cryptocurrencies and moving to the blockchain. And so yeah, kind of going back to that, we think the natural
You're
progression.
breaking up, Gareth. We can't hear you right now if you're talking.
Sorry,
Actually, I can't hear you, Gareth.
You can't hear me at all?
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, you
Okay.
can. Maybe it's
maybe it's just you, Youri. So yeah, so as I was saying, so right now when users are passing emails back and forth to each other, in order to do that, when if your computer's offline, there's like an encrypted metadata message that's posted to our server, and so when your recipients come online, they can check that database to see if there's any encrypted messages that were sent to their public key. And we see that as wanting to eventually move that to some sort of blockchain, so that Telios isn't like the one that has this messaging board that people are checking to see if they've got emails coming in from other users. And so when you make the natural progression of, okay, well, if we're going to put that on a blockchain, there's usually always some sort of currency involved with that. And so we don't really know what any of those rules or utilities are yet, but we're sort of taking it slow and like figuring out what makes the most sense on how to do it, and how that economy would work, right? So we kind of mentioned throwing the idea out there, like, maybe, there's some type of proof of stake model where you stake, coin, whether that's on our own custom blockchain, built with, some other tools, or it's on an existing blockchain. We still don't know yet, but that's all stuff that we're sort of taking slowly and day by day as we sort of like move to federate the network, rather than trying to like get that all figured out, up front.
Awesome. I appreciate your answer. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the great questions, by the way, too.
Okay, well, I don't think we have more questions since we didn't have more reactions. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank you, Gareth and Youri. This has been very informative, and thank you for all the listeners. So stay tuned for any more for the upcoming pop-ups. So thank you guys, and this has been Menna Aladdin and Ailín Pérez co-hosting the meeting, and thank you for joining. See you later.
Yep. Thank you for hosting, and thank you for everyone for joining as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.